So welcome to the Teahouse chat. So I've got two cups. I've got one for you, one for me. So we'll pour one for ourselves. We'll pour one for you first, actually, and I'll pour one for you. One for me, one for you, and there's your tea. Enjoy your tea, and I'll enjoy my tea. How's that? Very good. So welcome. So we had a subject today too. The journey from childhood trauma to self-acceptance, I think, was what they came up with. It's interesting. The staff here like to pick a subject that's useful and relevant, and quite often it's useful and relevant to them. So they want to know too. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. I'll talk about the philosophy behind that. I'll talk about the Chinese philosophy about that. I'll talk about the monastery philosophy about that, and then I'll talk about my own discovery and my own understanding of it in my life and how it's played out in my life and what I've learned from that myself, and to get out of my own childhood trauma to get to where I am now. And so I think it's quite a great subject. And I very much invite people to talk to that inside. It'd be really great too. So first of all, we'll go back to trauma. What trauma is, because there's different aspects. We'll just give an introduction to it, and then we'll have a chat about it. So the trauma itself comes from lots of different parts. It comes from the trauma that happened. We're talking about the childhood trauma. So we're talking about what trauma can be. So trauma can be physical trauma, where you break your leg or something when you're very young and you go through that pain thing. And when you're very young, that has a bigger effect on you than we realize, because your mind is still developing. And so our perception of what happened at the time and our recall of it can be a bit blurred over time. The thing that hurt you, or the subject that hurt you, or the incident that hurt you just plays in your mind, and it's recorded in your memory, and your cellular memory of your life. So it lives there forever. So that's why things trigger things when you see somebody fall over, and then you go, oh, and you remember when you fell over, yeah. And so this is this memory of that occurrence when that happened, yeah. And so there's always that piece of it. So, and then there's the traumatic, where so that's an injury one, that's a physical trauma. Then you can have mental traumas, where something's happened to you with your cognitive process, or somebody said something to you about, oh, can't you work that out? It's really simple. Are you dumb or something? And that trauma of that, we will carry that one through your life as well. Then there'll be one where you have emotional trauma, where you've come into pain, or something's happened, or you've lost your pet as a child, or you lost a parent, you lost brothers and sisters, and that emotional trauma was locked in there too. So all of these are running inside our DNA and memory, and cellular memory in our body, and it comes back, recalls it really instantly. I mean, I'll show you how clever it is. You can just think, did this the other day. These things are stored inside our body, and so we can have an instant recall of them. So I could give you an example of that. If you think of your bedroom when you were born in, and the bed and what was on the walls, your mind can instantly recall that instantly. And you can even record the age. It might be a different age, it might be in the teens, or it might be a child, or it might be really young, but your mind will go bang instantly there. And you can recall that now. So that's part of our memory. You can remember your favorite birthday present when you're a kid. And if as soon as I say that, you'll go, bang, I got it. And it's instant there. It's instantly refined as you're walking through your computer, and you just go, oh, present. And you dial into your search in your head, and you write it, best birthday present, bang. And then all of a sudden it just comes up, ChatGPT comes up and tells, oh, it was this. Mine, I can remember mine was my 5th birthday. I got a plastic grater, a big grater, like a plastic one. And I remember a photo of me sitting on my swing with holding my grater. And I can recall that instantly as soon as you say that. It was a 5-year-old present. And so we have that as instant recall. So then we can recall those, and we can recall my mum playing with me, or my father playing with me. Then you can recall all the other stuff too, which is including the things that aren't so good. And so the traumas, they're imprinted, and they can mar our life. But a lot of the traumas aren't what we think they were. We have a childhood memory of something, but it can, as I said before, it can be a little bit distorted. If it's a real trauma, like you did break your leg and things, of course it's a real instance and it's a real memory. But sometimes the emotional and the mental emotional ones can be our perception of what a 5 or a 10-year-old thought was happening. They might not have been that. And I'll give an example of that later. So part of it is, and I think is part of our journey as a human being. And in the monastery philosophy talks about this, it's about breaking your karmic cycle. Yeah, your cycle of the karmic story that you bring into it, and to break free from the karma. And the belief is that you'll be born into parents who will reinforce the karmic story. They'll actually be your number one antagonist in your life, because they will actually bring that story to life, and they will do to you exactly what your story is, your karmic story is, and amplify it and then stamp it. And then you have the rest of your life to deal with that and to let it go. And so that's one of the processes of understanding it. And then in the Western world, there's lots and lots of ways of how you let them go, how you define the story and how you move past the story. And that's part of the practice, I think, as a human being, is to get past it. Otherwise, these stories, they're like limiting belief stories. They run your life and you don't even know they're running in the background. I just did a seminar just recently in Jakarta, well, not Jakarta, here in Bali, for lots of Indonesian people. There were 60 people in the seminar, and we were talking about limiting belief stories, and then creating counter beliefs to the story. I don't know, I had 24 different ones that I handed out to everybody. And one of the, simple one would be, I never have enough money. And which is a really common one. And I said that to everybody, and we put a hand up and agree with it. But it's just a thought. It's just a belief. And then you can have a counter belief is that I always get whatever I need financially. Money always come to me whenever I need it. And people say, well, you can't just believe that and just have it. Well, the funny thing, it does. Your thoughts have a lot more power than we believe. But if you think that you never have enough money, then you'll always never have enough money, because that's your belief, and you're going to bring that into reality. So if you change your counter belief and say it differently, then the new belief comes and you just override it. And people will be working with how to do that, as I say, forever. I mean, it's like positive affirmations. You can say, money always comes my way. I'm always have money flowing to me regularly. But you have to say that 10 times. I think the affirmation processes, I think it's 10 times twice a day for 21. I think it's 21 days. I think it's along every day. And then you'll break the story. And then your new story will exist and the other story disappears. And so there's lots of ways of doing it. I'll give you a process on how to break those stories later, but it's more about what we think they are. So the traumas, as I say, that there are traumas that really happened, and there are abuse things that really happen to people, things that happen in their childhood that just full on. But remember, the child's recording it. And as an adult, we have a different view of it and a different way of dealing with it. I'm not saying they didn't happen. I'm just saying it's how you deal with it when you get older. And then we get into the idea of when we move forward from that trauma into life, then we have when we get this, they call it the victim mode in modern terminology. You become the victim to your story. And then you keep playing the story out to keep the story alive, because we've created this idea that this is what happens. You could have a story that nobody's there for me. Here's a good I just get some common ones, probably mine as well. Nobody's there for you. And so you have that story that sometime or other when I was a kid, I needed my mum and dad to be there for me. And when I needed them the most, they couldn't be there. And I had a particular thing that happened to me that played out. So then I had the story that nobody will be there for me when I need them. And what happens later in life, of course, is then you keep that story still running. So I'll reinvent the story where I need something else when I'm 20 years old, and then all of a sudden my girlfriend can't be there for me. And then she go, oh, see, the story's true. And then I'll get married and my wife can't be there for me. Oh, see, now, the story's true. And I keep reinventing the story, and I keep justifying my story by my actions. But the thing is, you're bringing this into your life to keep justifying it, to keep this alive. Anytime anybody does something where remotely looks like they're not there for me, I was like, oh, look at, they're not there for me again. And so you just keep promulgating the same story. It just keeps going on and on and on, the same story. And you're just looking for things almost to justify your story. And so then I become the victim of my story. And now I'm trying to prove my story all the time, because the question is, who am I without the story? If people are there for me, then my story doesn't exist. Well, I can't have that, because I've got a story that they aren't there for me. So I have to keep proving that they're not there. And so life keeps bringing me opportunities because I believe it. And then I can keep living inside the story and keep promulgating that story forever, until I choose to say, well, actually, it's not true. It's people are there for me. And there's a great one as us talk about that. And so that's the story. And we carry them, and there's not one or two, there's lots of them. As I say, some of the trauma is real story, but it's how we see it and how we let it go. Will you break your arm? Yes, you did. Was it painful? Yes, it was. Yeah, there's no doubting that. Did my mum not pick me up one day and I felt about it? Yeah, I did. But then what was happening with her? Why was she late? How bad did she feel about that? She'd left you there and she was late. We don't know. But the kids, all a kid felt was abandonment, nothing else. And now every time somebody's late for them, they feel the same feeling comes up. And then they'll create that in their life so that people are late. They'll be 1 minute late. They'll be 10 seconds late, and they might, oh, they're late. And then bang, straight back into the story about that feeling of being abandoned again, or not being worthy, or not being loved enough. Because if you love me enough, you wouldn't be late. You know, whatever story you've created with it, if it's not real, it's just a story. But the truth was that there'll be a reason why that happened, way beyond the mind of a 10-year-old. And so part of the breaking is to understand that and to go back to that situation and to unlock what really happened, not your thought. Now, I've talked about this before. I talked about limiting belief stories before. This is about this trauma story, and I'll give you a trauma story of mine, and I think I talked about it last time. That I remember a story when I was 2 years old. I think it was 2 or 3, and I was running around with my father, and I tripped over his legs. We were in the lounge, and I tripped over his legs, and I banged my head against the sofa. I had a piece of wood on the sofa where you used to put the cups on, the old sort of sofa, and I cut my eye open, and there was blood pouring out all over the place. And my mother went crazy at me. She just told me off for not being so stupid and for running around and being ridiculous. And the story was just really traumatic. And here I'm in suffering. I've got blood pouring out of me. And I don't know, I'm a kid. I got blood pouring. What's that? What's blood? What's that red stuff that's falling out of my head? And I'm just traumatized with this. And now I'm getting my mother abusing me. So I've done something wrong. And all I will remember 2 seconds before, I was just running around laughing. I was laughing. I was playing. So then the story is, oh, if you laugh and you play, something bad's going to happen. That's what got imprinted in that story. So it always stopped me slowly from getting too excited because something bad's going to happen, or I'm going to be stupid, or I'm dumb, or something. And that story ran for years until I found out the truth of the story. And I had to do a regression to find back, and went back to the situation and sat in there with my mum. And I sat there in the regression. I saw my mum, and I realized what the truth was. The truth was that she wasn't really super angry with me. She was really embarrassed because she failed to protect me, because she took on the responsibility because I got hurt. She failed to be a mum to protect me, and she was angry that I made her feel bad about herself. And the anger was about her anger because she felt that. So there's the story, and then I go, oh, it was never about me. It was about what she was feeling. And then so I let it go. And it has any time me at all. But man, for years and years, if I just thought of that, I'd feel that feeling. Huge. And if anything came up in life where something happened when I was in a good space and something bad would happen, then I go bang straight back to the story. And so I say this is how you can break the stories. And these traumas that you carry through, they're a real thing. And some of them are not tough to break because they're interwound with other stories. There's not just one clear story. You're not there for me. There could be you're not there for me, and you have the abandonment story as well, or that I'm not good enough. You could have all three of them. Yeah, I'm not good enough. The abandonment story, and nobody's there for me. That'll be good. Then I'll have all three of them, and all three of them will play out in your life at one time or another. And they're all just stories, and you can get rid of all of them because a lot of these aren't true. It's just only a perception of what happened as a child, anyway. So I'll give you an example while I'm talking before we go into the questions while I've set this up. Is there's a really famous way of dealing with these stories, and they've done over 200 research documents on this particular method of getting rid of that story or our story, and it works extraordinary. And they had amazing results, and it's one of the biggest well-known, well, not the well-known, but it's one of the most researched phenomenon that happens. And what you do is you, over 3 days, every night you write for half an hour, and you start with a story and you write at the very, very top of the story, and just write. All it is writing for 3 days. You can do it for 3 days, you can do it for 4 days. And you write on the top of the page, and you put down, nobody's there for me. Yeah, that'll do one. If we'll pick one of the maroon ones that I've had a lot. So much. I've written a book about them all. So nobody's there for me. And you start writing and you go, nobody's there for me. I never feel anybody wants to be with me. I don't think I'm good enough. And you just start writing. And you just write and write and write and write. And whatever comes up, you just keep writing. Because it'll just take you off into all the stories, and it'll take you, weave you through, and you just keep writing. Half an hour solid. You put a timer on, and you just write and write and write, and then it goes off, and then it'll disappear into other stories that backed up with that story, and you just keep going and going and going, and then you finish it. You don't necessarily read it back. You don't need to read it back. And then the following day, you just do the same thing again. Same time, half an hour. Write the same thing at the top. What was the story I had? Well, people aren't there for me. Yeah. Nobody's there for me. Put it at the top of the page, and then start writing again. Same subject, same title, and start writing. And then when you start writing, you'll rewrite some of the stuff that was on the other one, because it's the one that's driving the story. And then you start writing. Then you go off on different tangents altogether. It's totally different place, and just keep writing for half an hour nonstop, flat out. Yeah, flat out writing for half an hour. You get to the end of that, and you've gone off, and then you'll start seeing things that are breaking the story, because you'll start saying, yeah, but I didn't really know. I didn't really know what was happening. And how was I meant to know? I'm a 10-year-old kid. And you start writing this down by yourself. You don't even, you self-diagnose it yourself, because you just keep writing. Finish that one, day 3, you go back to again, write it out again. And then you start it off, and you'll have the initial, oh, nobody's there for me because I don't think I'm good enough. And then you say, and then you'll just go straight back into the positive order. He says, yeah, but who says what's good enough anyway? How can I be really good enough? Good enough for what? I mean, I can't compare with, and all of a sudden you start doing all the positives. But for the first one, you probably just do negatives for the whole half an hour. And the second one, you do negatives for half of it. Then you'll start thinking positive. And then the third one, you just start negative and you go to positive. And you'll come to that place by yourself. You don't try to come to that place. You'll come there anyway, because you're just going to keep writing, and it just comes up by itself. Magic anyway. So that's the one I'll give you to how to break these stories. It's one of the simplest and most effective way of doing it. It's only 3 days for half an hour, not like affirmations where you've got to do it for 21 days. This is a short version that happens really, really fast and really profound. So I can't encourage you to try it if you haven't already done this one before anyway. So I want to open up the questions. So any questions about this trauma, childhood trauma, to self-acceptance, and the self-acceptance is about accepting us for who we are and our stories and the fact that it all happened, because you can't deny something happened when you were young, because it did, but I'm not that person. I'm somebody else. And right now it's not happening to me now. So I want to live now, how I am now, not because of something that happened to me a long time ago, and coming back to the present moment and starting from here, starting every day from here, not from a memory, not by driving my life from memory, driving my life from my inquisitive nature into what life's about and what I want to do and what I want to achieve, and live from this place moving forward, and what I want to do in my life. How do I want to feel? How do I want to show up with myself, my friends, my work? How do I want to be in the world right now? Not being driven by all the stuff from the past anyway. Delicious.
Oh,
she's got something that happened to her at a very young age that made her think my mum's the worst mum. There will be it could be one story. It'll be one thing. So you'd have to, if your sister was open to it, you'd have to ask your sister, what is the thing you think about mum when you were young? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about your mum? And that could be a way into finding what the story is. There's just one thing. And she's held on to that. She's held on to that story her whole life, and seen mum like that forever and never. And then remember, once the story exists, she'll keep proving it's right. She'll keep proving it's right by every time your mum says something even remotely negative, she'll go, there it is, see, she's doing it again. And she'll just keep doing it for her whole life, but it started somewhere. And as I say, you might not know what it is, but there's a way of getting back to it. Yeah, totally different. So this is the worst mother-in-law. So she has a story about what does the best. Now, if there's another way you can get to it, and say to your sister, what if you had a mother the perfect mother, what would she be like? And you ask her that question. What would she be like if you had the perfect mother? And she'll tell you probably within the first one or the second part exactly what the story is that she thinks she's the worst mother. You ask her what the best mother is. So you go the opposite. What's the best mother trait of any mother? What's the best thing they could be for you? And she go, oh, well, you can trust them. There it is. That's the story. She did something to lose her trust. And she'll tell you what it is. Yeah. We just get clever at it, how to work out what it is. And then you say to us, that's not actually true. And then you ask her, so when did she do something to lose your trust? What was it? And she'll instantly, because it'll trigger her memory. If you ask the right question, she'll just go straight back. Oh yeah, she didn't do this when I was young. I said, there's the story. There's the start of the story. And you can break that story. And then she can be free from that and have a relationship with her mother, realize her mother's not a bad, good person at all.
No, she's not at all.
But remember, it's just come from a story, and just see how simple it can be. How people and families, don't you love it, Kerry? People and families can have a Christmas together, and one person can say something to the other person at the Christmas, and they don't talk to each other for 20 years. It's bizarre for one comment, and not even knowing where the comment came from, but just don't talk to them for 20 years. It's incredible how we hang on to these things, and we do it as a child. Anyway, off you go. Next time you talk to your sister, I would encourage you, because this is where we have family. We would not necessarily pick our family as friends sometimes, because we're really different. We associate with people that are similar to ourselves, and our family sometimes are completely different characters, different thoughts, different everything. But she's still your sister. And so I would say to her something like, to make her, and I said, I like listening to you. I like listening to what you say. Sometimes you say some really good things. I like listening to you. And you watch how she reacts to that, because she wants to be heard. So you give her what she wants. And so I really value what you say. And she'll just feel so content with that. And then she'll probably want to tell you heaps more, but it's okay, because she hasn't been able to spread this. She hasn't been able to say it for a long time. And she'll know if you're not listening too. She'll pick it up, because she knows when people don't listen, because she's felt unlistened to her whole life. She'll know the signs when somebody switched off. She'll be able to feel it. She'll know, because everybody else does it to her too. And because when you're trying to get attention, you want to speak, well, people can only take so much where they switch off and go, oh, like they're not listening anymore. And you don't consciously know it, but you know that the person's really not listening, but you still want to keep talking. God, stories galore today. I got another story. So I would ring her, and this is not going to be easy to do, and I'll tell you my story after this, after I tell you yours, is to ring her up and have no intention of her hearing you, of her hearing what you say. Have no intention of wanting her to hear you, but just listen to her. Nothing else. Just let her go, and just let her talk and talk and talk, and don't think about what you want her to hear, what you'll say, or your opinion, or anything. Don't even have any. Just listen to her. And if she asks you, what's been going on for you? Oh, not much. So how you go? How is it going with work with you at the moment? I just keep going back to her and let her talk it out. But as long as you don't have any need for her to hear you, as long as you don't have any need for her to hear you, then this is a lot easier than you think. It sounds terrible. Now I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you the story. I think I told this one last time as well. Did you hear it last time?
Yeah.
About the woman? For the other people who weren't here, I'll talk about. My teacher one day, he said, I was feeling really down. I was feeling really depressed. And I've had the depression stage in my life as well. And I was really down. And he said to me, so I want you to go and ring the person the last person you ever want to ring when you're like this, somebody that's just going to talk and talk and talk and talk and all about herself and not about anybody else, and just talk about herself or himself, whatever. And can you think of somebody? It was funny, as soon as you asked that, you just go straight, yeah, I know the person. And she said, just ring up this person. It happened to be a woman, but it didn't matter. It's not a sex thing. And I rang her up and I asked her, so how are you going? She said, I haven't heard from you for ages. It's so great. Well, I've got this going on. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this and doing that. And she talked for ages. And then she said, so how are you? I said, I'm great. So how's your work going? I said, and she's off again, running around work. Then she finished and says, oh, good. So where have you been going? I said, oh, I'm just sort of hanging out doing this thing. So how's your kids now? And go back to her. And it was difficult because I'm listening to she was talking lots. And I just sat there and listened. I don't want anything from her. I don't want anything from her. I don't want anything from her. I don't need her to hear me. And it got to the end of the conversation. So I hang up. I said, "Oh, I've got to go. It's great talking." She said, "I feel fantastic. Thank you so much for ringing." I said, "Oh, it's your pleasure. It's really late. Great to catch up." And I hung up the phone. Hang up the phone. A phone those days, by the way, it wasn't a thing. I hung up the phone. Remember, it's one of these things here. I can go right back to those days. Hung up the phone, and I sat there and go, "Oh no, it can't be that easy. I feel really good, and I didn't do anything." And I went back to the teacher and I said to her, "How does that work?" I said, "I felt really good. I was there because you didn't want anything from her. As soon as you don't want anything from her, you're not losing anything. You just hold space for and listen." I said, "Oh, it can't be that easy." She said, "It is, yeah, because you're giving it away. You're not trying to get something from her. You're just giving it away to her. You're giving your attention away to her. And when you give it away, the energy comes through to you, go to her, and the energy makes you feel good. It's like the energy, the Holy Spirit comes through, goes out when you're doing that. It's like the present thing." And I said, "Oh, that's great." And a year later, I went back and rang the same person. And I got into depression again. I felt really down. I go, "Oh, I know what to do. I'll ring her up." I go, "Oof, I don't really want to ring her up." Oh, I said, No, I'll do it." And so I rang her up. And the same thing happened, exactly the same thing happened. She told me all about what's going on. "How's your life?" "No, it's good." "How's your kids?" Straight back to her again. Hang up. She said, "Oh, I love you when you ring me." I said, "It's so good. So thank you." I said, "I'm welcome." I hung up. And I sat there going, "Oh, damn, it is that good. I feel great again." I feel, how could it be that simple? Because I didn't want anything from her. And I just gave it away. And I felt fantastic. And I think your sister could be a little bit like that. She just needs to know that she's been heard. You've done that. So you don't actually want to talk about yourself, and then she'll feel rejected from it. You see how simple this is? She'll feel rejected because she thinks you don't want to talk about yourself, that you're not want to be close to. You don't want to be close because you don't want to talk about yourself. And so you're going to need to open a piece of that so that she feels that you do want to care with her and you do want to open to her, but you're more interested in what's going on with her at the moment. Can you see how she'll respond to that? She'll pick it up. People are really sensitive about, especially if they want to be heard and not been heard in their lives. They watch what people do. They've worked it out how people cannot be listening. They'll know when you switch off energetically. She'll know when you're not listening. Yeah. So it's interesting. But then part of that is about your own self with her as well, is the growing the capacity with you and her as a human being, whether she's your sister or not. It's just a human being, how you show up with other human beings, how you show up and how you're kind to people, how you bring because the kindness brings energy to you too. When you're kind to people, it makes you feel better as well. And you're not doing anything wrong with kindness, you're giving out. Yeah, you're not bringing it back in. And that's the same thing. It's all about what you do. And I think it's great. And Kerry, you're a beautiful soul. So, I mean, you can do all of this. And sometimes we get caught in our story. I mean, I get caught in my stories all the time. The 10 principles of the monastery school, the first 5 of the principles are your relationship to heaven, or your relationship to nature, or your relationship to the thing outside of you. And the second 5 principles are your relationship with other people. But it's your relationship with other people, not their relationship with you. What they do to you has got none of concern. It's how you show up for other people. And that's what the second 5 are. And it's the other way around. It's not what you get from people, it's what you give to people. And I think it's really nice to do, because when you're giving, it fills you up really differently. But when you want something from them, that's a different thing altogether. And then the problem starts because they can never give you what you want anyway. It's impossible. And you'll always find fault with that anyway. Human beings, I don't know who invented all this stuff, who made all this traumatic, emotional nightmare we walked into. I was talking to Asha the other day. It was mental. Somebody else said it was mental. Who was it? There was a famous, I saw it the other day. There was a famous philosopher, or it was one of the, and he said that the universe is mental. And I read it, I thought, I just so agree with that. I think we're all mental. What a crazy thing to be walking in, to try and wade you through all these emotional experiences and the traumas and what people say and what people do. And half the people are trying to kill themselves, and another half the people in the world are trying to save each other. That's what a chaos. And to wade yourself through it as a child and try and make some sense out of that. Good luck as an adult trying to do it. to try and make sense of all the shit that happened to us and all the traumas that's happened to us and all the stuff that's happening. It's not easy. It's not easy to come back to a place and just be present in your heart and be free from that. But that's, I'm not saying it's the goal, but it's my goal, is to get to that place where I'm okay. I'm just okay with who I am, and I just show up and do the best I can with, and live by a good moral code that I believe in. And what other people do, they can do whatever they like. I'm not responsible for other people's choices. I'm just responsible for my choice. If you're going to write in a book and it's going to go to people that are non-Qigong people or non-energetic practitioners as such, they have to be able to grasp the concept of it. So you can talk about, and I used, when I'm talking about it, and I just did a class on it just recently in the course I ran, and we talk about the energetic bubble. But I talk it's like the force field of the Starship Enterprise. I'll make it even easier. It's your force field around the outside of you. And in Chinese medicine, of course, they call it Wei Qi. And Wei Qi is your defensive energy. It's like an energy around the outside of yourself. And that Wei Qi level, the energetic level, stops the cold getting into your body, stops the heat getting in the body, the dryness, and so it stops pathogenic invasion from outside. Otherwise, every time we walk in something super hot, we're just going to overheat instantly. Well, it protects us from that. And it drives our own protection, but it also is the same protection that stops bugs getting to us. It stops all sorts of energetic interference with us. If we run into a person that's very, very negative energetically, it stops that energy getting inside our body as well. It defends ourselves from that and bounces off. And so by using that terminology, it's easier for people to grasp the concept of that. And the Qigong, what you can do with Qigong exercise, you can build it up, make the wall around you stronger, the Wei Qi level stronger, so things can bounce off you. Now, we've done this in class where you can, once you've got the bubble around you, you can hug somebody with your bubble on. They can't touch you. They cannot physically touch you energetically. Physically, they're touching you, but energetically, they can't, because you have this idea of the force field around you. And it's a really lovely concept, and it goes way, way back into Chinese medicine and way back in the monastery culture of that to understand how you protect yourself energetically. And it's a beautiful concept. But if you want more detail about it, just message me and I'll talk to you a little bit more about it anyway, if that's useful. You're very welcome.
Okay, yeah.
The question, yeah.